Strasserism. Strasserism, German Strasserismus or Strasserismus, is a strand of Nazism, though it is disputed if Strasserism can be called a form of Nazism that calls for a more radical, mass action and worker-based form of Nazism hostile to Jews, not from a racial, cultural, or religious perspective, but from an economic antisemite basis to achieve a national. It derives its name from Gregor and Otto Strasser, two brothers initially associated with this position. Otto Strasser, who opposed on strategic grounds the views of Adolf Hitler, was expelled from the Nazi Party in 1930 and went into exile in Czechoslovakia, while Gregor Strasser was murdered in Nazi Germany on 30 June 1934 during the Night of the Long Knives, a violent operation against many of Hitler's opponents, including. Strasserism remains an active position within strands of postwar global neo-Nazism. Strasser brothers. Gregor Strasser. Gregor Strasser, 1892–1934, began his career in ultranationalist politics by joining the Freikorps after serving in World War I. Strasser was involved in the Kapp Putsch and formed his own Volksischer Wehrverband Popular Defense Union, which he merged into the Nazi Party in 1921. Initially a loyal supporter of Adolf Hitler, he took part in the Beer Hall Putsch and held a number of high positions in the Nazi Party. However, Strasser soon became a strong advocate of the radical wing of the party, arguing that the national revolution should also include strong action to tackle poverty and should seek to build working-class support. After Adolf Hitler's rise to power, Ernst Röhm, who headed the Sturmabteilung SA, then the most important paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party, called for a second revolution aimed at removing the elites from control. This was opposed by the German conservative movement as well as by some Nazis who preferred an ordered authoritarian regime to the radical and disruptive program proposed by the party's radicals. Strasser was killed during the Night of the Long Knives in 1934. Otto Strasser. Otto Strasser, 1897–1974, had also been a member of the Freikorps, but he joined the Social Democratic Party of Germany and fought against the Kapp Putsch. Strasser joined the Nazi Party in 1925, where he kept promoting the importance of socialism in National Socialism. Considered more of a radical than his brother, Strasser was expelled by the Nazi Party in 1930 and set up the Black Front, his own dissident group, which called for a specifically German nationalist form of socialist revolution. Strasser fled Germany in 1933 to live firstly in Czechoslovakia and then Canada before returning to West Germany in later life, all the while writing prolifically about Hitler and what he saw as his betrayal of Nazism's ideals. Ideology. The name Strasserism came to be applied to the form of Nazism that developed around the Strasser brothers. Although they had been involved in the creation of the National Socialist Program of 1920, both called on the party to commit to breaking the shackles of finance capital. This opposition to what Nazis termed Jewish finance capitalism, a form of economic antisemitism which they contrasted to producerism or what was termed productive capitalism, was shared by Adolf Hitler, who borrowed it from Gottfried Feder. This populist form of economic antisemitism was further developed in 1925 when Otto Strasser published the National Sozialistische Brief, which discussed notions of class conflict, wealth redistribution, and a possible alliance with the Soviet Union. His 1930 follow-up Minister Cecil Oder Revolution cabinet seat or revolution went further by attacking Hitler's betrayal of the socialist aspect of Nazism, as well as criticizing the notion of the Führerprinzip. Whilst Gregor Strasser echoed many of the calls of his brother, his influence on the ideology is less owing to his remaining in the Nazi Party longer and to his early death. Meanwhile, Otto Strasser continued to expand his argument, calling for the breakup of large estates and the development of something akin to a guild system and the related establishment of a Reich cooperative chamber to take a leading role in economic planning. Strasserism became a distinct strand of Nazism that whilst holding on to previous Nazi ideals such as antisemitism and palingenetic ultranationalism, added a strong critique of capitalism on economic antisemitic grounds, and framed this in the demand for a more worker-based approach to economics. However, it is disputed whether Strasserism was a distinct form of Nazism. According to historian Ian Kershaw, the leaders of the essay, which included Gregor Strasser, did not have another vision of the future of Germany or another politic to propose. The Strasserites advocated the radicalization of the Nazi regime and the toppling of the German elites, calling Hitler's rise to power a half-revolution which needed to be completed. Influence in Germany. In the United Kingdom, Strasserism emerged in the United Kingdom in the early 1970s and centered on the National Front NF publication, Britain First, the main writers of which were David McAlden, Richard Lawson, and Denis Pury. Opposing the leadership of John Tyndall, they formed an alliance with John Kingsley Reid and ultimately followed him into the National Party NP. The NP called for British workers to seize the right to work and offered a fairly Strasserite economic policy. Nonetheless, the NP failed to last for very long. Due in part to Reid's lack of enthusiasm for Strasserism, the main exponents of the idea drifted away. The idea was reintroduced to the NF by Andrew Brons in the early 1980s, when he decided to make the party's ideology clear. However, Strasserism was soon to become the province of the radicals in the official National Front, with Richard Lawson brought in a behind-the-scenes role to help direct policy. This political soldier wing ultimately opted for the indigenous alternative of distributism, but their strong anti-capitalist rhetoric, as well as that of their international third-position successor, demonstrated influences from Strasserism. From this background emerged Troy Southgate, whose own ideology and those of related groups, such as the English nationalist movement and National Revolutionary faction, were influenced by Strasserism. He has also described himself as a post-Strasserite. Elsewhere, third-position groups, whose inspiration is generally more Italian in derivation, have often looked to Strasserism, owing to their strong opposition to capitalism based on economic antisemitic grounds. This was noted in France, where the student Groupe Union Defense and the more recent Renouveau Francais both extolled Strasserite economic platforms. Attempts to reinterpret Nazism as having a left-wing base have also been heavily influenced by this school of thought, notably through the work of Pavel Reis-Knudsen, who produced the Strasser-influenced work National Socialism, a left-wing movement in 1984. In the United States, Tom Metzger, a notable white supremacist, also flirted with Strasserism, having been influenced by Kunin's pamphlet. Also in the United States, Matthew Heimbach of the former Traditionalist Worker Party identifies as a Strasserist. Heimbach often engages primarily in anti-capitalist rhetoric during public speeches instead of overt antisemitism, anti-Masonry, or anti-communist rhetoric. Heimbach was expelled from the National Socialist movement due to his economic views being seen by the group. Heimbach stated that the NSM essentially wanted to remain a politically impotent white supremacist gang.